What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Loose Ends Fantasy Football Podcast, a fantasy football podcast for average fantasy football players, hosted by JJ.
Bunch of average people.
Average fantasy football players ourselves, absolutely. Today, I am your host and reigning, undisputed, defending, drunk in draft dynasty league champion, and I am joined not by the man in the black and gold corn today, but by the only other man's voice you'll hear today. Your absolute favorite Steel City stalwart who can identify an IPA from a mile away. Our host here who secretly roots for the Jags while proudly waving his Steelers flag. A master strategist in fantasy football and an all-around gem of a human. One of my favorite humans on planet Earth, JJ. Pew, 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 pew.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in. It's going to be a good
What's
show.
up,
We missed
buddy?
Monty, but happy to be here.
Yeah, Montavious, for those listening in, is being an adult today. He bought a new home, so he's, moving in, getting
Congratulations.
settled, and exactly, congratulations all around.
Happy for
But
everybody.
I thought we haven't had a drink with just each other in quite some time.
This is true.
With everybody coming in and whatnot. So I figure, what better day than now to do a little beer with the boys action. You know what I'm saying?
Beer with the boys. Let's do it.
I'm actually going to let you go first on this one.
Okay. So I am drinking Golden Road Brewing Right On Imperial IPA, 9% ABV alcohol by volume. They are out of, I don't know, let's see, Los Angeles, California, Golden Road Brewing. All right, so a little IPA action.
Oh, we told you. You can identify the IPA from a mile away. He's there.
Ooh. Oh, I don't know. It's good. I just feel like it's not on a good team, so I'm going to go with. I don't think I've used this player before, have I? George Pickens.
Oh, only a few times.
I don't know. I probably described it differently than I will now, but this beer just seems like it's not putting all of its effort into its routes, just giving up on plays. Like he just doesn't want to be there. He's upset because he's not getting a lot of playing time. It's not a bad beer. It's got a lot of alcohol in it. It's good. Gonna need it for this episode, but it's delicious. So I'm going with delicious, but pisses me off. George Pickens.
Delicious, but pisses me off. You heard it here, folks. I'm actually not going with a beer today because, we're cutting down calories. We're trying not to, look so thick when we come down to San Diego for the boys.
Yay.
I'm actually going to bring up my favorite tequila today, Adictivo.
Ooh.
It is from Jalisco, which is an incredible place if you ever get the chance to go down. But it is my favorite tequila of all time. It's for somebody like myself who's not a heavy tequila drinker, I wouldn't say a tequila connoisseur by any means. This was the first tequila that I drank that I said, I need to know where I can find that bottle. And it is one that I now keep in my house at all times. So player comparison, I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson.
Ooh.
I'm going with Lamar Jackson because it's not what you expect, right? There's so many rumors out here. Everybody says tequila does one thing, does another. Everybody said Lamar Jackson can only run the ball. He can't throw the ball. We saw it over this past week. I mean, he can throw the ball as well. He can run the ball. Everything he does seems to be very fast, very smooth, very efficient. So my comparison, and I mean, right now I think Lamar Jackson's number 2 in the fantasy world overall. I'm sure there's a tequila somewhere out there that is better than this one that I haven't had yet, but as of right now, this has been my top shelf. So I'm going to go with the top player in the league right now.
He is number 1 overall right now.
Called it.
Yeah. Killing it. Another MVP caliber season, baby. So your MVP tequila, baby.
Absolutely.
Cheers, my man.
Cheers, buddy.
Salud. Woo. Goes down like Lamar too. Woo! Deep breaths. You took like that. That shit went down the wrong path.
100%. But it was so
You
good.
okay?
Yeah.
I've never seen you do that before.
That was crazy. Yeah, I've down the wrong pipe for sure.
We drink a lot together, so
No, it was good. No, wrong pipe for sure. But it was that smooth that it didn't burn. We are doing our recap episode. So let's jump in starting with that Thursday night game, correct?
yes, sir.
Kirko Chains, baby. Kirko Chains.
Oh my God.
Talk to me about Thursday night.
So obviously we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. Man, this game was a thriller. Went into overtime. The end result: Atlanta 36, Tampa Bay 30, with basically a walk-off touchdown. It was incredible. The person I want to touch on the Tampa Bay side of the ball is Mike Evans. Guys,
Of course
I
you
don't
do.
know if you watched this game, but this man is, in my opinion, first ballot Hall of Famer. He, in this game, scored 2 touchdowns, which actually got him to 100 total touchdowns in his career. Mike Evans joins the company of Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and Marvin Harrison as one of only 5 players who've ever scored 100 total touchdowns in less than 160 games. Just 1 week after becoming the Bucs' all-time scoring leader, too. Dude had 5 receptions on 7 targets, had 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ended up with 23.2 fantasy points on that night. Absolutely awesome. Baker was incredible in this game. He did only have 180 yards passing. He went 19 for 24, but he had 3 touchdowns, 6 carries for 42 yards. Finished the night with 22.4 fantasy points. I believe he's in the top 10. Yeah, he's the number 8 quarterback on the week right now, and we're still going through the Monday night game, but just a great performance again by him. Only threw the ball 24 times. Couldn't get a positive game script from the ground. These guys on the ground, both Rashad White and Bucky Irving, they didn't really get anything going. Rashad White ended up with 9.6 fantasy points. Bucky had 5.6. The other side of the ball for Tampa Bay, Levante David had a massive night for that team. Should have had the game-ending interception, but I think that Todd Bowles really screwed up there at the end. I think he actually lost that game for them with his decision making, just mismanaged it at the end. But Levante David had 8 tackles and 2 passes defended, ended up with 21.35 fantasy points. On the Atlanta side of the ball, what was most impressive to me, of course, had to be Kirk Cousins. Not a big fan of him in the offseason. I do owe you an apology, Kirk. You have been absolutely amazing, man. I think Atlanta did you well. I think you are thriving there right now. But not to take away from the amazing performance that he had 509 passing yards, threw the ball 58 times, 42 completions, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 1 touchdown that was over 40 plus yards, so he got that bonus too. He was sacked 4 times, but still, he made something out of nothing. Had a great game, and also got Drake London involved, which we've been missing. This dude had, I think, the best game of his career for fantasy so far. He went 12 for 13, 154 yards, receiving and a touchdown. Absolutely massive games for both of them. Scary moment at the end of the game. Drake London, we thought he got hurt, but then boom, young man, I believe his name is Kadero Hodge. What a cool story that is. Comes in for 1 play, scores the game-winning touchdown. He was speechless. He didn't know what to say. He was like, "This is what I dream of. I pray for this." I was so happy for him. Happy for the Falcons. They got that W. I do tend to side with the Bucs because of my love for Mike Evans, but this was a fantastic game, and like I said, I owe them an apology. They deserve it. Good for them. What'd you
We
think,
love to
bro?
hear it. Kirko Chains, baby. Balling out of control, as some of us said he would end up doing eventually. Some of us have some super spicy takes that are just, falling apart before our eyes.
Yeah,
Um,
that's me.
I agree, though. This makes Drake London that viable option and the true threat that we really hoped he would be when we talked about it in the offseason, right? We said, hey, in this offseason, Drake London, we talked about a little bit saying that his ADP might have been skyrocketed by some people hoping that this is exactly what would happen. I don't think a lot of us anticipated Kirk Cousins to be this good um, at this level for him to adjust this quickly. We always knew that Kirk Cousins was good, but this good is tough to say. Kyle Pitts showing he's still alive and kicking, so we like that. You know, he's not completely useless as a tight end like the rest of this league. Flip side of the ball, I want to talk about the running game. Bucky Irving getting goal line touches now, like predominantly goal line touches. So for the most part, though, we're seeing a 50-50 backfield here in Tampa now. So that's an interesting twist. A lot of people saw that coming earlier than I can say I did. But luckily for me, I was able to get off the Rashad White train, in week 2. Got him right before the season had started, kind of saw that week 1 and 2 and went, oh, this is not what we expected, especially given that he was so productive and such a workhorse at the end of last season. I didn't really foresee Bucky Irving being so relevant so quickly, but we are seeing that now. So, and there's another backfield in the NFL going on with that same exact thing right now, which we'll touch on here in a moment. But going forward, let's move over to that New York Jettas
Ooh,
and
yeah.
the actual Jetta with Minnesota.
So the first London game of the year was actually pretty
Absolutely.
exciting at the end of the game. It was not great football on both sides, I'll say. For the Jets, Ron finished the day with 5.76 fantasy points. He looked absolutely horrible. Poor guy. He ended up getting sacked 3 times. He had 3 interceptions on the day. Threw the ball 54 times. What is it with everybody, man? Do they just like decide, oh, it's week 5, let's start throwing the fucking ball now? I'm like, where has this been? It's not like it's successful, but I'm saying also unsustainable for these older guys to be throwing the ball that much. Completed only 29 passes for 244 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, sacked 3 times, and he almost died. He was crawling. I mean, at one point I thought he was done. He looked like he got re-injured again. The Brees Hall struggle continues. Only 6.7 fantasy points in this game. His biggest gain of the day was 10 yards. He finished the day with 23 yards rushing. Went 3 for 4, 3 receptions for 4 targets, 14 yards. Lazard, another touchdown, annoyingly. Finished with 15.4 fantasy points, had 10 targets, only 4 receptions for 34 yards. Garrett Wilson, finally looking like that wide receiver 1 that we were hoping for. But my goodness, 22 targets? Wow, that is awesome. But we can't expect that every game. This was a tough matchup with a good secondary in Minnesota. 13 receptions for 101 yards and a touchdown. Ended the night with ended the day with 29.1 fantasy points. Tyler Conklin had some big plays, and his involvement was promising. 11.5 fantasy points. Like you said, the tight end positions scoring in fantasy hasn't been super great, so I'll take the double digits when I can get them. 9 receptions for 55 yards. He's currently the tight end 14 prior to Monday Night Football. Once that finishes up, we'll get you guys those results in the next episode. Sammy D. We knew it wouldn't last long, but we also knew this is a tough defense and a tough matchup for quarterbacks in fantasy. Finished with 2.26 fantasy points, 14 completions on 31 attempts, 179 yards. He had 1 interception, 5 carries for 11 yards. He had fumble lost. He was sacked 4 times. We knew it was a tough matchup, but my goodness, take care of that man. Already dealing with a knee issue. Ty Chandler kind of stepped up a little bit, saw a little bit more action because Aaron Jones apparently is dealing with a hip injury, so make sure you're keeping an eye on that. But someone to kind of look in your leagues and see if he's available. I think that if Jones misses any time, Ty Chandler is going to be a good asset to have. And then looking at JJ, still, I mean, he had 6 receptions with 14 targets. He dropped a couple. He was locked up by DJ Reader. I think. I'm sorry. Sauce left the game for a little while with an injury. Hopefully he's okay. Keep an eye on that. Just for matchups in fantasy, whenever I think the Jets are playing the Bills in Week 6. So just look at that. Andrew Van Ginkel, dude, another pick six. This man has 2 pick six on the season. And also, just got to plug real quick the Parent Trap celebration. One of the all-time favorites of mine. I love that. That was so perfect. They're in London. They do the Parent Trap, which is also one of my favorite movies as a kid. I have 3 sisters, so leave me alone. But yeah, it was a great game, man. It got close to the end. Final score was 17-23. Minnesota 5-0 on the season. What do you think, Bubba?
Man, Aaron Rodgers is cooked. Boy,
Yeah.
he's done. I don't know what's up with him. He been done. But here's the thing. How much is Aaron Rodgers? How much is it the offensive line? We don't really know. Garrett Wilson had himself a day, right? But it almost seems as though the Jets have kind of given up on running the ball, which is a tough thing. They've gotten away from it. No traditional downhill running. They don't even want to attempt it. That's how bad this offensive line, I think, truly is. Which you hit the nail on the head, right? Breece Hall was drafted RB2 in most leagues, but so far hasn't really looked like an elite fantasy option in the run game. His pass catching volume has saved him in a couple of weeks here and there. But for the most part, in the run game, it's just not really a thing. I mean, he's only at 3 yards per carry so far in 2024. So it's a head scratcher for sure. And then all the people talk about, okay, well, Braylon Allen, there's this share. But even if you look at this last game, a lot of people were nervous. They said, oh, well, he only had 11 touches. Well, then you look at Braylon Allen and he only had 6 or 7 or whatever it was. So the share is still heavily in Breece Hall's favor, but the Jets as a whole, as an offense, are not utilizing the run game. So that's a good sign for Breece owners. But the dark side of that is they're not using either running back, so you got to deal with that. Flip side, Minnesota kind of runs through Justin Jefferson, so when he has those drops, it kind of halts things on the offensive side. So that was tough to see, but all parties look good. I don't really have much to say on any of the fantasy options from the Minnesota side. It was a London game for sure, tough to watch.
Yeah, it was. You want to go to the next game?
We are moving over to the Carolina and Chicago game. Yeah, I mean, one half of this wonderful retirement duo looking like his retirement self, right? Andy Dalton fell off a little bit this week. Surprising. They didn't throw the ball quite as much, which hurt me a bit with Deontay Johnson, right? Not receiving near as many targets, and which was so gracefully pointed out to me is a true fantasy trap. But I'm still
That was
a
me.
believer. Yeah, I'm still a believer. I am. Chuba Hubbard is playing like a man possessed. We love to see that. Good for him. And again, same thing I said last week, right? This is just more proof added on top. I'm very curious what happens for Jonathan Brooks coming back. Are they going to continue to hold him out till he gets fully healthy, or are we going to start seeing him in limited roles? Are they going to ease him back in like a Nick Chubb situation? Like, is he going to take the full year on a snap count because Chuba's playing so well? Are they just going to ease him into this offense? It's definitely something to keep an eye on. Flip side, Caleb Williams had a nice little day. And then DJ Moore and DeAndre Swift as well. I'm happy to see those guys looking confident back at it and finally playing together, because we talked so much about that offense and what they could be. It's finally nice to see them gelling at least a little bit. Granted, again, against Carolina, but you got to start somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
That's where Cincinnati started, and look what they did this week. They had a great game.
It did. Still couldn't get the W, though. Fortunately, we'll get to that.
Right.
I do want to say that I feel Chuba Hubbard's performance right now is going to be so much harder for them to take those opportunities away from him. So I do think we're looking at them more likely easing Jonathan Brooks into the mix instead of making him the workhorse back coming off of an ACL injury. Like you said, I, looking at the Carolina side of the ball, was really impressed with rookie right inside linebacker out of Kentucky, Oh, I didn't write his name down. he he took over for Josie Jewell, who's dealing with a groin/hamstring injury of some sort. Don't know what's going on there, but he came into the game and actually did really well for the Panthers, even though they didn't win this game. Sorry, I'm trying to find this.
Is that Trevin Wallace?
Yes, I think that's what it was.
Trevin Wallace. Yep.
Yeah, so thank you. 21 years old, 6'1", 244, right inside linebacker. Dude was all over the field. I don't know if you watched this game. 75% of the snaps, he had 15 total tackles. So it was really involved, fast, filled that spot. That Josie Jewell, being the veteran guy, hasn't really been able to do that yet. But I think if he remains out in week 6, they're playing Atlanta. This is a divisional game, so look for him as a linebacker to kind of fill for your bye week gaps at IDP. Ended up with 27 fantasy points. That's killer as a rookie. Just been getting better and better, getting more playing time, and finally got the opportunity and killed it. Like you said, Chuba Hubbard, currently running back 7 on the season. So, like I said, it's going to be hard for them to move away from him. I really feel that way. Finished with 13 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. He had 4 receptions for -2 yards. Ouchie. And had a fumble. What was truthfully the bright spot for that offense, and this team being 1-4. You know, he's a young guy, possibly a trade target if you're looking for a running back, because I don't think that he's going to lose that much opportunity with Jonathan Brooks coming back. I really don't. Xavier Legette. Yeah, I put him in my flex spot, and I feel for you guys that also did the same. It's really disappointing. He left the game with a shoulder injury, but doesn't look like he'll miss any time. So just something to keep an eye on. Look for that Wednesday injury report. See if he's at least there. If he's not dressed up, whatever. Just keep an eye on that. But I think going forward, like I said, they're playing Atlanta. I would look for him to play in that game, and if Thielen's not back, then yeah, I see him being a good flex option. On the Chicago side of the ball, DeAndre Swift again. A nice performance. 21 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown. He went 2 for 2 in receptions for 47 yards. He had 20 fantasy points. Okay, it was against Carolina. Again, but they're playing Jacksonville next week, so in London. So I think maybe we could look at DeAndre Swift as a flex option. I'm not ready to put him even as my RB2, but I mean, back-to-back 20-point games, that's pretty good. And I do think that the window for him being tradable is closing quickly, so try to do your work. Other than that, for the Chicago side of the ball, defensively, Kevin Byard, man, the old head, he's a fantastic DB. I do really love him. He had 6 tackles on the day and an interception, ended the night with 18 fantasy points.
Love it. We just talked about a very good but strugglesome game for Cincinnati. Let's jump into that one. I will let you kick that one off.
Okay. So, yeah, this game was awesome. It also went into overtime. Baltimore takes it 41-38. Now the Baltimore Ravens are 3-2, and they have a divisional win. So, kind of sucks. I wouldn't expect anything less from the AFC North, though. It's going to be battles. I wouldn't expect a high-scoring game with any Steelers matchups, but these two teams defensively have been giving up a lot of points, so it was exciting to see. But on the Baltimore side, Lamar Flexen Jackson threw the ball 42 times. This is not what they want to do. We've seen it. They go from throwing the ball 18 times, 15 times, and then they'll throw it 40 times. But this is what is so interesting. They know how to turn it on when they need to. And if they're not getting what they want on the ground, they can go to the air. Rashad Bateman was oddly relevant in this game, which pisses me off. However, Zay looked fantastic as a wide receiver 1, finally. 12 targets, 7 receptions, and 111 yards. That's the day that we've been waiting for, hoping for. Happy to see it. But looking at Jackson, yeah, man, 348 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Was on absolute fire at the end of the game. There was one play, I don't know if you saw this. He actually bobbled the snap and then fell, but got up, actually pushed a defender to the ground, ran to the sideline, and then threw a touchdown to Isaiah Likely. It was
in the back of the end zone. Yep.
Oh my God, it was beautiful. And Isaiah Likely made sure he got his feet inside of his time. Still had a fumble. That's okay. Went 12 carries for 55 yards rushing. Ended the day with 32.42 fantasy points. Currently, like we said, the number one overall fantasy player, the number one quarterback. The other side of the ball, Cincinnati, finished as let me say this. Lamar finished as quarterback 2 on the week because quarterback 1 was actually Joe Burrow. So Joe Burrow finished as quarterback 1, 34.78 fantasy points. He went 30 for 39. Fantastic completion percentage. 392 yards, 5 touchdowns. That was more than Kirko. He did have an interception, but he did have 2 touchdowns over 40 plus, and 1 touchdown was over 50 plus yards. Jamar Chase had 46.3 fantasy points, went 10 for 12 receptions. 10 receptions on 12 targets, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Higgins was right there with him. He had 14 targets, 9 receptions, 83 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They were great in this game, but still wasn't enough. I want to ask you, what does this team need to do to win? They just put up so many points on the board. 38. They still can't get it done.
It's not I mean, you gave up 41, right? It's not an offensive thing, right? You put up 38 points. Now, I would like to see them do a little more than, have a 66% target share between 2 guys. That's never a good thing moving forward. But it worked, right? You put up 38 points. It wasn't a scoring issue. But when you're giving up 41, granted, you're giving up 41 to King Henry and Lamar Jackson. But still, 41 to any team is too much. It's a defensive side of the ball now, which is a good problem for them to have, right? Now you only have to fix one side of the ball. If the offense is clicking finally, you only got to fix one side. So for me, things I saw in this game, I mean, we already talked about it, but Cincy let it fall away themselves, right? That's for sure. King Henry and Lamar, they put the team on their back. But more importantly, for me and every other fantasy owner of Mr. Mark Andrews, he decided, hey guys, I can still catch the football. I still play tight end, reminding us that he's still in this league. But yeah, I mean, the big story was Joe Burr, man. Joe Burr looked like Joe Burr. Jamar, 2024 boom game. T. Higgins had himself a day. The offense was on those guys' shoulders. Like I said, 66% target share percentage between the two of them. They held their weight against a stout Ravens defense. They did their job on that side of the ball. The Ravens, you said it better than I can. I mean, they live and die by that run game, minus the dying part, because they showed it right here. We just talked about it earlier. I mean, do you remember when Andy Dalton was the only guy in the league to have a 300-plus yard game? Now we had 2 of them in this game, a 500-yard game. I don't know why it took forever.
Both had 300 passing yards.
Yeah, this goes back to us hating preseason, but.
Yeah. Oh my God!
Anyway,
I feel like the first 4 weeks of this season are preseason.
Yeah, let's not jump into that. Buffalo and Houston.
Serious.
Buffalo and Houston. This game was a little odd to me. A little odd in the sense that, can we really rely on Josh Allen every week to put this team on his back? It's just so difficult to watch. It's so unsustainable. This is nothing but the Josh Allen show in Buffalo, and he's either going to get hurt or all your little dreams are going to get crushed because he's going to fizzle out in the playoffs in their little run like usual. They're going to run into a team who knows how to shut it down, and then you're going to get hurt like you do every year. Oh, this year's the Bills' year. No, it's not, because you don't have anybody else for him to throw to. What are we doing here? Flip side, Nico Collins' hamstring hurts my soul because that's my man.
Sorry, Bubba.
Yeah. Tank Dell had an opportunity with Nico going down, right? He went down in the first quarter, still only had 4 catches for 38 yards. Nothing to write home about. Stroud looking solid. Some good decisions, some poor, but overall a good outing for him. But yeah, I mean, hopefully Tank Dell can have a little bounce back then, maybe? I don't We'll see what happens. But JJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to say if Nico misses some time, I think Tank Dell is a flexible option if you're in a bye week pinch, right? If you are afraid of or lacking some depth, maybe you can look to him. I'll have to check and see who they're playing. But I did want to say, talking about Josh Allen, the Buffalo side of the ball, he left the game with a concussion, right? Which sucks. So we may not actually have him next week against the Jets, which is a big divisional game. So we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, excuse me. Those Wednesday injury reports are so crucial. So keep an eye out for those. But he went 9 for 30. He had 9 completions on 30 attempts. Guys, that's 30%. He completed 30% of his passes, only threw for 131 yards. We talked about it last week. But the Ravens did the rest of the league a justice by showing the Bills, they want to run the ball. They're not throwing the ball. Make them throw the ball. And this is what happens, right? Not good. He had 1 touchdown for 40-plus yards, which was to my baby Keon Coleman. We'll get to that in a second. He had 4 carries for 54 yards, ended up with 14.64 fantasy points. That's not the Josh Allen that you guys want. It's not what you need. You need the Josh Allen that can run, who can throw. Right now, he's not throwing. I don't know if you saw this, Blake, but Keon had 5 targets. I don't know. Did you see this?
Probably.
He was running a slant, and he wasn't even looking back at Josh. And Josh threw the ball, and it hit Keon in the back of the head.
I did not see that.
I gotta send it to you, dude. I was rolling this morning when I was watching the film. Oh my god, it was ridiculous how just not even on the same brainwaves. They're so right now not in sync. And, it's a rookie receiver. I understand that. But even with 5 targets, he turned one of them into a 49-yard touchdown, which I think is just so hilarious, man. We can hope that maybe they get on the same page and going forward it looks a little better. But I think Keon is that type of player. We can hope for the long touchdown, and that's what we're going to get from him mostly. I did want to touch on your IDP that you mentioned last week.
My dog.
Still very, very consistent. Yeah, I mean, I was watching it a little bit more closely. Dude, just a monster. 26 fantasy points, had 11 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, and he only played on 53% of the snaps. But this guy is consistently hitting that 20-point mark. That's what you want. That's what you hope for. Teron Johnson left in the first quarter, DB. And Cam Lewis kind of took over. He got an increase in snaps up from, I think, the 20-30% he was getting. He had 68% of the snaps after that injury to Teron Johnson. Ended the night with 17 fantasy points. He had 8 tackles. So as we talked about, DB, you get 7-8 tackles. That's pretty good. If you can do that consistently, that's kind of a lot for that position. On the Houston side of the wall, do you dare go with downright Ogumbawale? Dude,
Nope.
He is nasty. I agree. I wouldn't fall in that trap. We talked about it last week. 15 carries, 30 yards. The only thing that really is good about this is the 6 receptions and 7 targets that he had for 57 yards receiving. He ended up with 14.7 fantasy points. That's a good flex option. Or if you need or are in need of a running back too, I think he could fit there too. Just keep in mind though, Mixon and Dameon Pierce are coming back. Both had injuries, but once they come back, I expect Dare to see the amount of snaps going from 68 down to probably not even 30. It's going to be all Joe Mixon and maybe some Dameon Pierce. I don't even think Dare is going to be that involved unless there's another injury. And then on the Houston side, because I got to make sure we all know that he's not on the Bills anymore. Stephon Side-Eye Diggs. Did you see this man dapped up Josh Allen after the game and gave him the
Yup.
Well, I mean, they won this game. Houston won this game 23-20. It was a close one. But Stephon looked good. 6 for 8, 82 receiving yards, 16.2 fantasy points. Like you said, Nico hamstring injury, pulling the hammy. But the number one wide receiver in fantasy, hopefully we get him back soon. I'm a big fan of Nico as well. And as you touched on, the involvement of Tank Dell is really a question mark. I don't understand. Nico's not in the game. How is Tank not that guy? It kind of looked like it was Stephon. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more involvement in production from Tank for fantasy.
Whew. We are moving over into the Indianapolis and Jacksonville game. I will let you touch on this one first.
Okay, I got a lot to say about this one. Okay, so for the Colts side of the ball, guys, this game also came down to the wire. Final score 34-37. Jacks gets their first win. They're 1-4. Indianapolis is 2-3. They lose the first divisional. Well, actually, not their first divisional. Now they're 0-2 in the division because they lost to the Texans in week 1. Joe Flacco certainly gives this Colts team, this Colts offense, a boost in the accuracy department where, with Anthony, we weren't getting that. He went 33 for 44. That's 75% completion of his passes. That's fantastic. 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a fumble in the game. 3 carries for 22 yards. Okay, old man. Let's see. Run that ball. We got sacked 4 times. He ended the game with 26.56 fantasy points. He is the quarterback 4 on the week prior to Monday Night Football game. Trey Sermon. I know, Blake, you were in a sticky matchup this week and you were playing against Trey Sermon. I talked about him in the ad portion of last week's episode. I really think if Jonathan continues to miss time, you can rely on this guy. He had 18.3 fantasy points, 10 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. He went 6 for 6 receptions, 25 yards, RB5 on the week. And this is, of course, I just want to mention, we're filming this before the Monday Night Football game is over, so make sure you guys are aware of that and go check. Just make sure.
Yeah, it looks like Kareem Hunt's gonna have a big night.
Oh,
so that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting actually. Someone I did
currently right now as we sit is 9 carries for 45 yards, a touchdown, and 1 reception. So 10 touches with 6 minutes and 39 seconds left in the second quarter.
All right. Oh, worthy of the big play. Yeah. We talked about it. You thought I was crazy. You threw the challenge flag at me. You got it right here, motherfucker.
And then I picked him up.
Yeah, you picked him up. I love it. No, hey, you know what? So that's what we do this for, okay? I'm here. I'm trying to do the research and show you that we can change our minds as fantasy players. It's allowed, okay? You want to get mad at me for a take? That's fine. I am really just trying to find the best way to play the game, and it changes constantly. So the other part I wanted to talk about in the Colts offense was Alec Pierce, dude. This guy doesn't get a lot of involvement, but he does the most with so little. 3 receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown. Wide receiver 9 on the week. Michael Pittman also, first touchdown of the season. Hey, congrats for you, Bubba. Happy to see that. 14.7 fantasy points. He had 5 receptions, 8 targets, 37 yards, and a tutty. Josh Downs is so much more relevant when it's not Anthony Richardson at the quarterback position. 9 receptions, 12 targets, 69 yards, no touchdown. But still relevant. And I think someone, if he's available, I don't know that he is going to be available in many leagues. I want to say his roster, he's 94% rostered. So I don't know that I would go trade for him because I'm looking to have Anthony Richardson come back probably this week or next. On the defensive side of the ball, my essential start of the week at the IDP position was EJ Speed. Not bad, a little down from what we've been seeing at 15.7 tackles, 58% of the snaps, lowest snap count of the season for him. And then looking now at the Jags side of the ball, I'm happy the Jags got the win. Like you said, I do have some love for them. I'm a Steelers fan until I die, but at the same time, when Trevor Lawrence decides to show up and play. It's always a good time for everybody. 24.24 fantasy points. He had 28 completions on 34 attempts, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He only had 2 carries for 4 yards. Leading the Jags to a W, man, in those sick ass throwback jerseys. Oh my god, I love those so much. I want to get one of those so bad. Not T-Law's jersey though. I don't like him that much. That's right, bitches. I'm getting a jersey. It's going to be Brenton Strange. No, actually, I do love Brenton. Had a great game. 12.4 fantasy points. He went 4 for 4, 24 yards and a touchdown. If I'm going to get any jersey, it's going to be Brian Thomas Jr.'s, baby. He looked amazing in this game. He had the second longest touchdown reception in Jags history, 85 yards. He hit a top speed of 22.14 miles per hour. That is the fastest speed for any ball carrier so far in the 2024 season. He had 27.2 fantasy points. He had only 5 receptions on 8 targets, 122 yards. I mean, Brian Gingerbread Man Thomas Jr. run as fast as you can. You will not catch this man. He is nasty. And then on the defensive side of the ball, guys, holy shit. Trayvon Walker. I had picked this guy up in the offseason thinking like, oh, there will be those games where he really gets through this offensive line. And that this was one of those offensive lines. They're dealing with a lot of injury as far as the Colts go. But he had 34 fantasy points. This is the biggest scoring game in his career for fantasy. 5 tackles, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. An absolute monster. Number 3 overall scorer in week 5 right now. That is awesome. It's so hard for me to talk about Tank Bigsby because I dropped him. The man broke up for a 65-yard touchdown. And that wasn't even like the best thing that he did. He had a great day. I'm happy to see it. It sucks that he's not on my team anymore. I hate that. 27.9 fantasy points. He had 13 carries for 101 yards. 2 touchdowns. Just 1 reception, but it was 28 yards. Woo. What'd you see, Craig?
For me, I want to start with that. So, Tank Bigsby is, golly, that boy looks good. He looks so good that I think Travis Etienne could realistically be on the trade block coming up here for the NFL trade deadline. Could be a realistic trade away target going into his 5th-year option. Or I think they did take his 5th-year option, so he would be a free agent anyway. So now would be the time to trade him for capital if they were going to. It's interesting to see because, and I don't think I gave this take too much on the show earlier in the offseason, but for anyone that talked to me outside, in the real world and not in our fantasy bubble here, and if you would have asked me about Tank Bigsby, I told everybody I don't think he matters. I don't think he's relevant. We're talking Travis Etienne, top 5 running back, and they're looking like they're going to utilize him in the same exact way this season, and I was very wrong. Tank Bigsby looks like the guy in Jacksonville, and Travis Etienne is an afterthought. So that's very interesting. But from this game specifically, Indy is just such a meh team to watch, right? They're just not super explosive. It's not very fun unless Alec Pierce is involved, right? If the ball touches Alec Pierce's hand, for some reason, magic happens. So we like seeing that. But aside from that, it just bothers me to watch them. Joe, right? Mr. Flacco showing he still got some juice in the tank. So that's always fun because these receivers definitely needed to be viable in the fantasy game. Sermon showed out in the late garbage time for us. Good game for him overall, but a lot of it came down the stretch. So something to monitor in the next game if JT doesn't come back. I played him. I didn't like it, but whatever. Got to give props where props are due. And then my final note was Brian Thomas Jr. is a DAWG dog. Ooh, dog.
Yes.
Yeah, just good for him, bro.
Nasty,
Good
dude. I'm
for
so happy.
him. Let's move over in this Miami and New England game. What a straight up paint drying of a game to watch. I would rather watch a golf tournament in Chinese with Hindu subtitles. This was Worse than a middle school Pop Warner game. Tyler Huntley, still remembering he plays football in the NFL. Devin Achane, maybe the most exciting player on the field, gets hurt. Jalen Wright, interesting to watch for sure, but didn't do a whole lot of anything. Tyreek still doing Tyreek things, but at a minuscule level. And I don't even want to do a flip side. Douglas and Ramadre are the only candidates that are even worth talking about, and they're both a trap. So I don't trust either one of them. We all thought that Ramadre was going to lose his job in general going into this week, and then he had a turnaround game, but it's a trap. I don't like either one of them.
Yeah, I mean, for Miami, Tyler Huntley's not looking too great. I thought that maybe he would be the rushing upside quarterback that I love for fantasy, but this is a solid rush defense in New England. So he only finished with 3.46 fantasy points. I would hang on to him for now until we figure out what's going on with Tua and everything. But Devon Achane hurt. That sucks. Concussion. Look out for that. But they are going into a bye week in week 6, so that's good. We'll give him a little bit more time to recover. Alex Ingle, the fullback, had the touchdown for the Dolphins. What the fuck is going on? And then the kicker knocked down 3 of 4 field goal attempts. Okay, fun. Whatever. Raheem Mostert came in, took the majority of the snaps. That's great. Hopefully he can do that if HN misses some time. But like I said, with the bye week being in week 6, looks like he'll be okay for week 7. Even though HM wasn't there, Raheem had 11.8 fantasy points, 19 carries, and 80 yards, 2 for 2 targets and receptions, 18 yards. Jalen Wright looked pretty good. Saw a good amount of carries. He had 13, 86 yards. That's good. New England side of the ball, Jacoby, like we said, drop candidate. I don't think that he's going to be able to help you at 5.4 fantasy points. Remains useless for fantasy, truthfully. Ramondre, like you said, very productive day. Only 47% of the snaps, but ended up with 19.2 fantasy points. That's a big step up from the 0.38 that we saw just 2 weeks ago. 12 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. 4 for 4 receptions, only 3 yards. But I do like Pop Douglas. There's just too many receivers there. Kendrick Bourne's coming back from an injury, so I wouldn't really put too much stock in him.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the Alec Ingold touchdown. So, did you watch the play at all?
I don't know that I did.
Okay, the play right before it to get them down on the goal line, he had an incredible block to free the run. So when he scored, it was basically like, "Hey, you did all the dirty work to get us down here. You deserve this." So it was a cool football moment, but a very shitty fantasy moment, which was, for us, we hate because we think that these guys should be coaching to our fantasy teams, but for, people who are fans of football, which we also are, it was a very cool football moment to see.
Awesome.
We like when people are rewarded for doing the dirty work.
Absolutely.
But let's move over to this Cleveland and Washington game. JJ, what did you think about it?
So, I mean, good Lord. Cleveland, get Watson the hell out of there, man. He's done. He's so done. We talked about it last week. I'm going to say it again. Get him out of there. He's looking worse than Aaron Rodgers. He got sacked 7 more times again. Like, this isn't new. It happens every week. Put Jameis in there, man. Get Jameis in there. These guys will play for Jameis. They'll block for Jameis. They don't want to block for Deshaun Watson. He's probably fed up. I think at one point during the game, he just absolutely gave up on a 4th down that the head coach tried to go for, but he just started walking towards the sideline, didn't say anything. I don't know what the hell is going on with this guy, but just give it up, man. Amari Cooper suffers again because of the poor quarterback play. 10 targets. Only 4 receptions and had 60 of Watson's 125 shitty poopy yards. Okay, passing. He had 10 fantasy points, and I just it's so frustrating. I think he is a trade candidate. I really do. Get him out of there. He's still got it. He's an amazing player. He just needs to go somewhere where he can win. Because it's not Cleveland. Jordan Atkins, 3 for 3 and a touchdown. Okay, that's cool. 22 yards receiving gives you about 11.2 fantasy points. That's good. Like I said, double digits for tight ends right now. Take it wherever we can get it. Washington is so impressive. Absolutely love watching this team. They run a lot of no huddle. I think the most in the league. They're 4-1. Jaden has been absolutely lighting the league on fire. He looks not only like the rookie of the year, but also in contention for possibly most valuable player.
There's only been one rookie MVP in history. Do you know who it is?
Quarterback?
Jim Brown.
Oh, running back, right? Jim Brown was a running back? Okay.
Yep. Oh,
Wow.
Jim Brown.
That's crazy. That's good trivia. I like that one. 17.72 fantasy points from Jaden. A little bit down from what we've been seeing from him. That's okay. Still 14 for 25. 238 yards. He had a touchdown, an interception. He had 11 carries for 82 yards. My goodness. But he was sacked 3 times, so that's minus 3 points for us in our league. What do you do with Brian Robinson? I am not sure, guys. I don't know. He's splitting carries with Austin Eckler right now, but he had 2 touchdowns. If I had woken up on time, I probably would have put him in my lineup, but I didn't wake up on time, so make sure you wake up on time, especially with those games starting at 6:30 on the West Coast. When there's a London game, then it's. But yeah, I really don't know what to say about Brian Robinson. I think I'm still going to play him, hoping that the run game is what they're scheming for that week. But looking at the matchups, we'll just have to see what that is going forward. I believe they play Baltimore. Baltimore doesn't give up a ton of rushing yards. They've been giving up a ton of points to receivers. So I would look at that. Is Diami Brown going to be more involved with this offense going forward? Right now, they don't really have a solidified wide receiver 2.
I think it's a week-to-week thing. It's whoever steps in that role in that moment, right? We've seen Luke McCaffrey get involved some weeks. We've seen Diami Brown right now. Zach Ertz has his weeks as well to be that WR2. I think it's just whoever gets involved that week.
I mean, we really haven't seen it from Luke, man. They haven't given him more than 3 targets. I mean, Diami only had 2, and he just made more of it. He had 57 yards and a touchdown. That's really the only reason why he had so many points. He had 14.7 fantasy points. Yeah, that big play, plus 50, plus 40, I think. He's 24 years old, so I don't know. Someone to keep an eye on for me. Like I said, with Luke being a rookie, there could be potential for that wide receiver 2 spot to be his, but we'll see. Like I said, not too many targets there for anybody, but unless you're Terry McLaurin or Zach Ertz. But I was looking at Frankie Louvu for the Commanders. Oh my goodness. Monstrositous day on my bench. 30.75 fantasy points. Dude has 7 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and he had a fumble recovery. I think that you could definitely play him next week against the Ravens. Don't look for him to put up that kind of performance. I think the sacks and the fumble recovery is really what spiked his fantasy value. But still, if you can get him, I don't think he's rostered nearly as much as he should be. Let me double check for you. He's rostered 64% of leagues with IDP. So,
all right, coming down to the later portions of these games, I want to touch on that Cleveland-Washington game. I hate Cleveland, both offensively and defensively, to be honest. It's just hard to watch. Flip side, Jaden Daniels, nasty offensive rookie of the year. Still on that horse. The running back game, stout. Passing game, stout. Best offense in football right now. I'm trying to get a piece of this in whatever fashion, if I can. It's working, and I love watching it. The first time you'll ever hear me in history say that the Washington Commanders are fun to watch. So that's an exciting thing. But we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. We are back, and we are going to kick things off with the Las Vegas and Denver game score. Vegas 18, Denver 34. Denver pulls away with this one. So a couple of things for me. I mean, are we going to see AOC finally? What's the plan here? Do we trade for a QB1? Do we tank for Shadur? Like, what's happening? Right, I have so many questions. But positives, Brock Bowers had a boom day, so that's really about all the positivity that came from that side.
Kaboom!
Flip side, Javante had a nice little day, so I'm not mad about it. Looking more like himself this week, even though the rest of Denver was meh. But the run game was sustainable. Him and McLaughlin had a good little day, so I'm not mad about it. JJ, what do you think about this week?
Um, yeah, well, I think Minshew's fucking dog. Yeah, remains a droppable player, throwing 2 picks and getting caught picking his nose. Gross. They benched his ass. AOC did actually see some time in this game, but he looked like shit too. He went 10 for 20, 94 yards and an interception, and he got sacked 1 time. So, Trey Tucker suffered 6.6 fantasy points, 2 for 5, 18 yards. Good Lord. Jacoby led all receivers in this game for fantasy points, 13.2, 6 for 9, 72 yards. Like you said, Brock, the rock for this team, Bowers, putting up big numbers, big fella. Love to see it. 27.7 fantasy points. I think by far the number 1 tight end on the week. We'll see if Kelsey gets up there, but I'm not sure if it's looking like it so far. And then on the Denver side of the ball, and you said the running backs looked a little bit better. Jaleel McLaughlin, 11.5 points, 6 carries, 22 yards, 3 receptions on 4 targets, only had 3 yards, but he did have a receiving touchdown. Javonte Williams, hey, not bad. 16.1 fantasy points, 13 carries, 61 yards, 5 for 6 receptions, 50 yards. Are there any receivers that are going to be productive? I know Bo missed Troy Franklin on a touchdown pass, but I do want to say that this disconnect, it could be the rookie thing. They also played
Whoa.
together.
Troy Franklin also dropped a touchdown pass.
Okay. I still think that connection is going to take time. Not a bad strategy to ground and pound and play defense and dump the ball off to your running back. It paid off in this game. Especially it helps when you have the best corner in the NFL. He only had 3 tackles, he had 2 interceptions and a pick 6. He had him with 28 fantasy points. Yikes.
2 more things I want to touch on. Robert Spillane, another great day for him.
Your essential
Didn't
start of the
touch on
week.
him. Yep, my essential start of the week had another
Woo-hoo.
great week. Also, you think that it's a weird thing for Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, like they have to get that connection down, even though they had it in college? You think it's different being now that it's at the NFL speed?
Yeah, I think they may have that college connection, but there is some growing that they both have to do at the NFL level. So it's just going to take time, but little tweaks here and there. They're in a new offense. You know what I mean? That's going to take time.
Makes sense. Let's move it on over to this Arizona and San Francisco game, which I loved watching. Yeah,
Man.
go ahead and kick us off.
Okay. Kyler, make it Flurry, Murray. Bit of a redemption week, 25.1 fantasy points. He had 19 completions on 30 attempts, 195 passing yards. He had 1 touchdown, over 50 plus yards, 1 interception, 7 carries, 83 yards. I'm sorry, the touchdown was a rush. That was over 50 yards. And he did end up having 83 rushing yards on the day, which is fantastic. I mean, Jaden had 82 with 11 attempts. Better week for Murray. Doesn't necessarily translate to the receivers. Poor Marvin Harrison Jr., 5.6 points, only 2 receptions on 7 targets, 36 yards. James Conner, hey, looking great again. Absolutely love James Conner. Had a great story, good kid. 15 points for fantasy, 19 carries, 86 yards. He had 1 2-point conversion, 2 receptions for 3 targets and 14 yards. On the San Francisco side of the ball, I don't like the way this team looks right now. I was so upset with Fred Warner. I actually sat his ass, and then he decided to go out for 23 points. Son of a bitch. I do expect this team to get back
You
on
tell
track, but it's going to take some time. And I want to say that, Brock he's not playing at the level that we need him to. He had 2 interceptions. He went 19 for 35. 244 yards passing, 4 carries for 33 yards. He was sacked twice. The run game struggled, even though Jordan Mason had 14 carries and 89 yards. He had a fumble. So that killed his fantasy production and kind of took him out of the game. It did, however, switch to me watching Isaac Rendo get a little bit more involvement. That's exciting. Hopefully that just grows because I don't know when Christian McCaffrey's coming back, if he comes back at all. Happy for Brandon Ayuk, man. It came to play. Ended up with 22.7 fantasy points. He had 8 receptions for 12 targets, 147 receiving yards. Now that's the Brandon Ayuk we know and love. Concerned about Debo. Didn't look good. Not putting him in my lineup against Seattle if I had him. George Kittle, tight end 2 on the season, baby. Woo. 24.4 fantasy points in this one. 8 for 12, 64 yards in the touchdown. And this team lost. I think they're going to continue to go to George. He looks like the best option other than Brandon Ayuk, who finally decided to show up.
Yeah, for me, I mean, Kyler, dog week.
Mm-hmm.
Looked great against San Francisco. Had a little Josh Allen in him. Had to do it himself. The receivers didn't really, do a whole lot, but had to put the team on his back. Him and James Conner in the run game, and I loved every second of it, especially the James Conner portion because I tried trading him away multiple times and nobody wanted him.
James Conner?
Yep.
You never sent me an offer.
Yep. Maybe I don't want to trade with you. Flip side, Brandon Ayuk, boom day, which, I mean, finally, we like to see that. And then George. Oh, George. I love you. Thank you for being you. Don't change.
Watch out for that tree.
I need all of that. Yes, Mr. George of the Jungle.
George of the Jungle.
But let's kick things over to the New York Football Giants and the Seattle 12th man wielding Seahawks. Daniel Jones isn't complete trash. Newsflash, boom, tabloids.
I can't believe you said
no Malik Neighbors and still salvaging games. He's not that bad. He's not good, but he's not horrible. And we're okay with that. He was able to get others involved, and we really like that because that's a good sign that Malik is, in fact, that man, and it's not just because he's getting thrown the ball 975 times, right? We have confidence that Daniel Jones can continue to feed him in a realistic way. If he can do this with, people we never expected, that's a good sign for Malik Neighbors. And we're hoping to see Malik back next week. Aside from Kenneth Walker, I was actually disappointed with the rest of Seattle's offense. They were pretty average against a meh Giants defense. Average days aren't bad, but when you're playing against meh teams, we want to see boom days, right? We had the expectation of boom days, but they were just meh days. But Kenneth Walker had himself a day, and I loved it. What do you think, JJ?
Yes. Rookie running back Tyrone Tracy for the New York Giants had a big day. 14 points. Take it. Fantasy, 18 carries, 129 yards on the ground. He had 1 reception on 2 targets and just 1 yard. Oddly, though, when I was watching this game, I felt like it was Noah Gray. It was so weird. And then I look at his fantasy production. 4 carries, 4 yards. But he had 3 receptions for 50 yards. That's what I kept seeing. Catching the ball.
Eric Gray?
What did I say? Noah Gray? Oh, that's the tight end. I'm sorry. Yes, it's Eric Gray. Thank you.
Got it. Okay.
Eric Gray, the running back, who in this game was the RB2. He had a fumble loss. Finished with 6.4 fantasy points. The other person I wanted to look at, you said it, Daniel Jones. Okay, 19 fantasy points. He actually outscored Geno. And Geno is the quarterback 5 on the season. So without Malik, like you said, these receivers, they've 8. So it is promising for when he gets back. However, Darius Slayton, if you were bold enough to put him in your flex because you didn't have Malik, you ended up with 26 fantasy points. He went 8 receptions for 11 targets, 122 yards and a touchdown. My baby boy, Theo Johnson, finally. Hey-o. Good to see you, bud. 5 for 5, 48 yards receiving. Okay, I'll take it. 9.8 fantasy points. Seattle side. Woo. Jerome Baker was all over the field. He's coming back from an injury. He missed 2 games because of a hamstring. 31 fantasy points. He had 14 tackles, 1 sack, and a forced fumble. And then you said it, Kenneth Walker and my Bubbas played fantastic. 16.6 fantasy points, 5 carries, 19 yards. But where he really made his money was 7 receptions for 57 yards. Crazy though, they only ran the ball 7 times, and he ran it 5 times. So, JSN, congrats on your first TD of the season. Only finished with 13 fantasy points. I really wish I never would have gotten him.
Let's move over to the Green Bay and Los Angeles Rams game. JJ, I'll let you kick us off on this one because I'm sure you have a lot to say about Mr. Romeo Dobbs.
Oh my god. I feel for him more than anything. It makes me sad. This is not how you handle shit. I'm just saying, you're a professional. You're not happy with how involved you are in the offense. Do something about it, but don't miss practice. All right. Apparently, there's some big problems in Paradise. I don't know if you could call it GB Paradise. I don't think Aaron Rodgers thinks it's Paradise. But hey, Packers get the W in LA. That was a great game too. The Rams surprised me. Didn't think they were going to make it so close. Dontavian Wicks targeted 7 times, but only had 2 receptions. What the hell happened, bud? You were supposed to be that man, but really, kind of a disappointing day. Only had 4 fantasy points. Emmanuel Wilson also didn't really get a lot of involvement. 6 carries, only 24 yards. 2.5 fantasy points. But Josh Jacobs stepped up, looked a lot better. 16.4 fantasy points. He had 19 carries for 73 yards, a touchdown, and he had 1 reception for 21 yards. On the Rams side of the ball, defensive lineman, the right DN, Kobe Turner, was game record. He did, I think, put them back into the game. He had 30 fantasy points. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble. Colby Parkinson also looked much better with 12.2 fantasy points. He went 7 for 13 and 52 yards receiving. So if someone dropped him in your league, maybe take a look.
All right. These are my boys. Look, Dontavian Wicks can't catch the ball. Let me start there. He caught a case of the QJ and
Or the Christian Watson.
yeah, he whatever's going around, it's contagious. He can't catch. Last week he dropped a few balls, even though he had 13 targets. Still dropped a few balls, and everyone said, sometimes you just have games like that. And then he came out this week, 7 targets, 2 catches, same thing, just drops the ball. You get paid millions of dollars, catch the ball. Anyway, excuse my TED talk. Jordan Love, second time in 12 games, he scored less than 17 points, so something to watch, right? I mean, he's still a QB top 7, so don't shy away from it, but a little frustrating from a fantasy view. But from a Packer view, dub. And thank you, Mr. Xavier McKinney. Another pick, baby. 5 picks in 5 games. He also had a forced fumble, I believe. Whew, boy. Jaden Reed, nasty boy. Good for him. We love to see it from the second round pick from Michigan State. Flip side, Kyron Williams, 23 touches, 15.5 fantasy points with a touchdown and a fumble lost because I'm cursed with fumbles lost from my running backs. And then offensively, only Colby Parkinson gets my praise this week because the whole league needs to praise any tight end that plays halfway average. But let's kick it over to the final game of that wonderful evening. Your boys. I'm going to talk about it first so I can let you close it up. Is Jalen Tolbert the new CeeDee Lamb, or what did CeeDee Lamb do to Dak that he's hating on him? I'm confused. That was wild to watch for the most part of the game. Fantasy-wise, it was kind of a letdown. Nobody really showed out, especially not the quote-unquote big-name players, right? CD, Mr. Pickens, Dak, etc. It was a real pick-your-poison type of day, except for one name. One guy emerged. Rico Dowdle. Boy. Welcome to the Dallas run game. Will we see more of this man going forward? That is the question for sure. Defensive side of the ball is where the money was made last night. Let me tell you, which is why we love to see the big boys up front, right? Getting it done, right? We love to see that type of stuff. And I want to shout out a Scotty boy, TJ Watt. Congrats, young man. 100 sacks is a great feat. Make sure your brother knows you did it too. But yeah, let's kick it over to JJ. Tell us about your team because I'm sure you have a lot to say.
All right. Before I get to that, I'm going to talk about Jalen Tolbert as well. Yeah, you said is he the new CeeDee Lamb? I don't think he's the new CeeDee Lamb, but he did surprise me. He has had some games where he's gotten into double digits. Looks good. I mean, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. He ended up with 21.7 fantasy points. He did have more fantasy points than CD, so that was really confusing to see. Can we rely on him to continue to outscore CD? No, we cannot rely on that. I don't know when Brandon Cooks is going to be back. Just keep an eye on that injury. But if you need someone to fill your flex position because of bye weeks, look at Janet Tolbert. I don't think he's rostered very much in sleeper leagues, so take a look. And you said it, baby. Rico, Big Daddy Dowd. Very impressive game. 19.4 fantasy points. Finally, 20 carries, getting that volume. 87 yards, 2 receptions, 2 targets, 27 yards, and a touchdown. And I got to talk about my man, Eric Kendricks. I picked him up off the waiver wire. 24 fantasy points, 10 tackles, and a forced fumble. That's awesome. Going to the Steel City. This was a heartbreaking game to watch because the offense and the special teams, the defense and the special teams were absolutely on fire. They did their jobs, TJ Watt, as you said, 8 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and one of them was a strip sack. So he had a fourth fumble. He ended up with 27.5 fantasy points. His 100th career sack, second fastest player to ever do it, 100 sacks in 109 games. And who was the first to get there? Who got there the fastest? None other than Mr. Reggie White, Hall of Famer. Did 100 sacks in 96 games. That is great company. Not many people will get to say that, and TJ is right there, I think, as one of the greatest defenders of all time. You can't convince me otherwise. Nick Herbig, hey, we need him big time. Unfortunately, he looks to have sustained some kind of hamstring injury, so just keep an eye on that. We got a couple guys out on the defense. That is my biggest fear, is the injuries. Still had 10.5 fantasy points, so if you needed him, hopefully he was able to give you what you needed. Very concerned about George Pickens, okay, guys, on the offensive side of the ball. Watching the plays today, I was disgusted. I was concerned. I don't know what's going on. Is he unhappy with the offense? Is he unhappy with the play calls? The thing that really upset me the most was he only had 34 of 57 snaps on offense. He is the best receiver on that team. I don't know why they're not putting him on the field. I do think it has something to do with attitude and discipline, because Mike Tomlin is that kind of coach. If you go back and watch the film, there were plays where George wasn't running fast. He knew he wasn't getting the ball. He gave up halfway through. His route just wasn't there, wasn't looking for space, wasn't looking for the ball, wasn't trying to give his quarterback opportunities to make plays. I'm not happy about this. And this morning I was pissed because I saw a quote by Mike Tomlin, but I want to read it to you guys. I'm actually not upset about it anymore. He said, "We just wanted to minimize," talking about George Pickens, "his reps in an effort to get more productivity. We wanted to cut his reps a little bit in an effort to get higher quality play just in general." I want to say thank you, Brooke Pryor and the Bird News on Instagram. Love you guys for that quote. This has disciplinary issues written all over it, okay? There's some kind of disagreement. I saw a play where they did target George Pickens. He let the ball go right through his hands, and Mike Tomlin lost his fucking mind. The offense is killing this team. They're absolutely killing this team. They have one star, and he doesn't want to show up right now. He ended up with 5.6 fantasy points, 3 receptions on 7 targets and 26 yards. He's getting less than 30 receiving yards a game, and it's so frustrating. Najee also, just what the hell is going on? 14 carries, but can't clear that 50-yard mark. It is infuriating if you're a Najee manager. There's really no way to get rid of him. I told Blake, I don't know that he's going to be a Steeler next year. You're talking about Travis Etienne, also could be a free agent. There's going to be some free agent running backs at the end of this year. I think we're going to see maybe a little bit of musical chairs at the running back position. We'll see. But he could be in that mix. He's also, someone who's frustrated. Hey, Pat Fryermuth, the Muth got loose a little bit, had a fumble. It's okay. I forgive you. But other than that, just not a lot of success on the offensive side of the ball. This offensive line is young and injured, and there are so many problems and things we need to work on. This defense did everything, like I said, they could And they needed to do. They had 3 takeaways, and on special teams was a block kick. Offense, get your fucking shit together. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, we did it. That's all the games minus the Monday night game here that is currently and actively happening, but we did it. We made it through all these games. JJ, do you have anything to say to the folks at home?
Hey, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, give us some feedback. We love to hear it, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Absolutely. For those at home, smash all them buttons, and we'll see you next time.